It is episode 7, the first of 2023 of the Sporting Tribune Today podcast. And joining us for the second time covers the Chargers here for us here at the Sporting Tribune. Fernando Ramirez joins us. Fernando, Happy New Year. And I'm going to start off with this question. I haven't told you, but I'm Puerto Riqueño and Costarricense. Do you judge me because I can't roll my R's as a Latino?
No, thank you so much for having me. It's awesome to jump on with you once again. Actually, I'm not one of those people because I know people who are gringos who can actually roll their R's really well. I know some people who can. So I've never been one of those people that judges other people. I mean, I have imperfections. Everybody has imperfections. So why judge others for that stuff? So I'm cool with everybody. That's each other's thing. So I'm not a hater at all.
Look at that, Fernando, with the positivity in the new year. This is
Got
exactly what
you.
the streets need. And,
Exactly.
and
Mamba
before
mentality.
there it is. And before we get into the Chargers, I do want to ask you because, like, heading into this season, right? Everybody and their mama was saying how the AFC West is going to be the hardest division in football, the hardest division ever. And obviously, I'm here in Las Vegas. The Raiders have disappointed. You Chargers are about to face the Broncos season finale to get that 5th seed heading into the playoffs. And the Broncos have disappointed and failed with that Russell Wilson trade. For you on the outside, looking at those two teams in this division, between the Raiders and the Broncos, which one has been more disappointing this year?
It has to be the Broncos. I mean, Derek Carr and the Raiders are almost there. Like they're only a couple of wins away from actually. I mean, I guess being a wild card team. I mean, especially the way this wild card shaping out, and some of their losses were self inflicted. So it's been one of those things where the Raiders kind of self imploded at times, losing to the Colts, losing to other teams like that. But the it has to be the Broncos. I mean, a lot of people had the Chargers and the Raiders as wild card teams or maybe winning the division, but a lot of people had the Broncos winning the Super Bowl. Remember, there's that streak of because of Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford. Now, because the year that you switch teams, they go on and they win Super Bowls. It's been the last 2 years. Well, everybody thought, oh, Russell Wilson's going to continue that. Well, Russell Wilson free fell and kind of fell on his face, and you have teammates. And it's funny. People say the WWE scripted. Some of this stuff with Russell Wilson seems even more scripted. Like 4 teammates come out and defend him, and he says thank you to those teammates. I'm like, dude, this sounds. And like half of the team goes to his birthday party, and it's like, are we like in draft day? Like, get at it. Like some of this stuff just seems so scripted. It's hilarious. But it has to be them, and especially because you could tell the defense got really frustrated with the offense. The defense is a top 3 defense in the NFL, and the offense just couldn't get it done. So you could definitely point at the Broncos and say they're the most disappointing team because of all the moves that they made and the talent that's on that team.
And the Chargers, they finally did it. Herbert is headed into the postseason. So looking at this Chargers team and now me looking at this team from the outside, is it safe to say that Sunday night football game a few weeks ago against the Dolphins and they were very hurt, very, very hurt, and they have been for most of this season,
Mhm.
but was that Sunday night game the turning point for the Chargers season?
I think it was actually that Arizona game, that Arizona Cardinals game. They had just lost to the Chiefs. They had just lost to the 49ers and the Chiefs. And you took the 49ers and the Chiefs to the end of the game for them to beat you. And those are the 2 best teams, I think, from what people think are the 2 best teams in the NFL. And that's without Keenan Allen. That's without Mike Williams, Joey Bosa, some of your players that weren't there. And I think those 2 games kind of frustrated them. That Arizona game, you pull it out. Then you go and you lose a game to the Raiders that you shouldn't have lost, but still, that kind of jump started them a little bit. And then that Dolphins game, what Brandon Staley did in that game is his defense finally came into fruition. They pressed the Miami Dolphins corner or receivers, and that didn't allow Tua to get his little check downs and his little out like his slant routes and everything. They kind of took that away, and they got the pass rush onto Tua. So I feel like that helped their defense really change it around. And ever since then, their defense has been on. And then, hey, you just got Joey Bosa back, and Joey made some noise against the Rams. I mean, he pushed their right tackle into Baker Mayfield a couple of times. So if Joey can get hot in the playoffs, then they really are going to be they're really going to be able to challenge some teams. But definitely, I think that Miami, I think the Arizona game was a turning point for them But for the defense, it was that Miami Dolphins game, like you said. That game really turned everything around for their defense, and their defense has been playing at a very high level ever since that game.
And you brought up Brandon Staley in your point, and I do want to ask you um, to keep talking about this turnaround and to stay on the defense first before we get into Herbert and everything. How much credit does he get for this turnaround? Because they've been banged up, like you said.
Yeah, no. What I was gonna say, my bad if I interrupted you, is just that Brandon deserves a lot of credit for keeping the team together. And I mean, a lot of teams would have been like, you know what, like. They would have lost. A lot of teams would have lost the locker room. A lot of coaches would have lost the locker, especially with all the noise about, hey, Sean Payton really wants that Chargers job. Hey, Sean Payton's already putting together a coaching staff, and it's going to be a superstar. And then, hey, on top of that, we have to remember, Brandon Staley's from the Vic Fangio system, and his defense is already built from the Vic Fangio system, so he could just slide in and be the defensive coordinator. A lot of noise going around, and Brandon Staley tells the guys, and this is what Austin Eckler, this is what all the players have been saying, is that he said, you know what? Let's not listen to all that crap outside. It's all about us, the guys that are in here. And that's why Brandon's been able to keep a hold of this team. That's why the players love him. That's why the players respect him. And it's funny because some people are like, well, did he lose the locker room at one point? And it's like, no, the players have always been behind him. And you see a couple of days ago or a couple of weeks ago, after the Monday Night Football game, Kyle Van Noy tweets out. And remember, Kyle Van Noy's only been on this team since March or April. He tweeted out, okay, all y'all in the media were talking hella smack about Brandon. Now that we were on this winning streak, where's all the love? Like, why aren't we getting more and more people talking about how good he's doing? And yeah, I mean, you have to give the guy his flowers when he's doing well. So I definitely agreed with what Kyle Van Noy said, especially because Kyle then I went on the Pat McAfee show and said this guy, he's like he's different. He's a different guy. He's really kept us together, and I really do think he thinks Brandon Staley's special. So two-time Super Bowl champion who was with Bill Belichick. How can you argue with something that a guy like him says something like that? So yeah, definitely kudos to Brandon for keeping this all together.
And I love the synergy that we got going on right here because my next question on my notes is very simple. Kyle Van Noy, is he really him on this defense? Because he's been playing phenomenal, right?
Yeah, no, and you know what's funny? After the 49er game, we were sitting by his locker, and I'm like, "What's up?" And sometimes I just talk to him just because he's such an interesting guy to talk to. He's a great human being. Just he's different. So I was just talking to him, and I'm like, "Hey, Kyle, how you doing?" He's like, "Man, I was so bad that game." I'm like, "Well, no." He's like, "No, stop." He's like, "I was bad," and I was like, "Oh, well, what did you think?" The thing is, Kyle came in as a middle linebacker slash edge rusher at times. Joey Bosa goes down. So now you have to go to almost full-time edge rusher, and that kind of took him a little bit to kind of get used to. And then and so now he says that he feels like he's really in it. Well, guess what? Now you're really in it. And Joey Bosa's back. So can you imagine at one point they could literally rush Morgan Fox, Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, and Kyle Van Noy. So the Chargers pass rush is starting to kick it up. And then, oh, hey, you could throw Derwin James in there and throw him right up the middle as well. So as of right now, I mean, Kyle Van Noy really has kicked it up. He's also, and you mentioned that Dolphins game. Before that Dolphins game, he got the defense together. No coaches, nobody, just them in a room. And he said, all right, guys, what do we need to do to step up? What can we do to get better? So the defense talked about it. They came up with ideas, and really, Kyle and Khalil Mack have been two really big game changers for this defense because Khalil Mack also on Fridays team dinners. Everybody goes out to dinner together and everything. So it just you can tell that the leadership has really come to fruition for the Chargers. But yeah, to answer your question, Kyle Van Noy, 4 sacks in the last 4 games. He really has turned it on. And if he's gonna play like this in the playoffs, the Chargers are gonna really benefit from having a guy like him with them.
Fernando Ramirez joining us, Chargers reporter for us here at the Sporting Tribune. And let me ask this question for the detractors of the Chargers. So I'm looking at the defensive success, especially their pass defense. They've allowed less than 185 yards the past 4 games, but those past 4 games have been against the Rams with Baker Mayfield, the Titans, the Colts, and then the Dolphins with the Tua. Just is Tua healthy or not? So yeah. I guess my question to you is, as they head into the playoffs, do you see this defense being sustainable and keeping up what they're doing? Because I think the answer is yes, because you just mentioned that pass rush, and that's the start of everything.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it is. And I mean, the thing is, you have to play the opponents in front of you. And I mean, that's the thing. In the past, the Chargers have failed at these times. Last year, they failed at this time. They went 1-3 down the stretch. And everybody's like, oh, well, look, they're frauds. Well, now they've beaten the teams in front of them. And some people have said, oh, well, they haven't played anybody. Well, the Titans aren't anybody. I mean, they might. I mean, and I know everybody thinks that the Jaguars are going to go in, but if you think Mike Vrabel and that Tennessee Titans team isn't hearing all the noise and they're not going to come in fast and furious and try and beat the Jaguars, and you're mistaken. Like, they're going to put up a fight even without Ryan Tannehill. And the Dolphins, hey, the Dolphins were hot at that point. They had just lost to the 49ers, but they were still hot at that point. Everybody loved them. Everybody was saying, oh, it's Tua,
8-4. Yeah, they were 8-4.
And then they called it the Tua Herbert Bowl. Herbert obviously wins, and then all of a sudden, oh, well, Tua's injured. I'm like, come on, get out of here. Like, Herbert was hurt at the beginning of the season, and everybody was telling him
criticizing him.
Yeah, they were criticizing. There you go. But no, I think it is sustainable. But the thing is, you just have to play who's in front of you. If the Chargers can go into the playoffs and going and riding in hot, feeling good about their defense, then they really could do. They could beat just about anybody. Now it's going to be a matter of, can you overcome? Hey, we're going to be on the road the whole time. Hey, we might have to play in 10-degree weather. Okay, if you can overcome all those things, then it'll be fine. But definitely, I feel like the Chargers are riding a high right now, and they should be feeling good about themselves moving forward.
And I want to say that it is a good sign for the Chargers that we have spent all this time talking about this team and the success that they've had. And I haven't asked you a question about Justin Herbert yet.
Yeah.
So here it is. Obviously, this team's been riddled with injuries on both sides of the ball. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams have been in and out for big chunks of this season. But ultimately, as they head into the playoffs and as those boys get rested up and are getting to full strength, this season has been very good for Justin Herbert in realizing that, or do you think it's been very good in the fact that he hasn't had his pieces and he still had to make it work? Like, it's been a learning experience and a learning curve.
Yeah, no, I've jumped on a couple of radio shows and I said this year, and people get amazed by what I say, but this is probably the best year that Patrick Mahomes has ever had. And what's the link there? There's no Tyreek Hill. People were like, "Well, why are you saying that it's his best season?" I'm like, he hasn't had to depend on, before Patrick Mahomes would depend on two receivers, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and he would overthrow McCole Hartman. He would underthrow certain receivers. He wouldn't get the ball right on the money. Why? Because he always had that connection with those two, but didn't have it with the rest of the guys. The connection was there, but it wasn't always at 100%. Now he's had to learn how to play with Juju Smith-Schuster, McCole Hartman. He's had to play with a whole new set of weapons and not depend on Tyreek Hill. So he's spreading the ball around, learning how to make new receivers, how to make new weapons. That's where Patrick Mahomes, I think, is the most dangerous he's been this year, and that's why, to me, he's the MVP. Players always need to learn how to do that. Same thing with Tom Brady. Tom Brady's had to learn that. This year, Justin Herbert had to learn it as well. When there was no Mike Williams, there's no Keenan Allen, but you still kept your team in games. Unfortunately, the Chargers didn't have enough weaponry to go in there and win those games, but man, you took it to San Francisco. You took it to the Kansas City Chiefs. You were almost there without those weapons. So I definitely think that Justin is special. I think that those kinds of games show how special he is. But the only thing is, he just needs to learn how to get over that hump a little bit and maybe win those games. But that also falls on the Chargers organization to get him better weapons. I mean, when you're out there with DeAndre Carter, Josh Palmer, and Michael Bandy, I mean, the guy isn't going to make fish. He can't turn fish and bread and feed a whole village without more help. So it definitely, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, you have to, and when I saw Philip Rivers first learn how to play without his weapons, it was bad. It was 2011 or 12. He had a terrible season. I think he almost led the league in interceptions. And it took him 8 years to finally have to play without his weapons. With Justin, it's only year 3, and he's learned. So I think that definitely is going to benefit him moving forward.
And also, I'm not going to be able to ask you a question on Austin Eckler, one player of the week for the AFC, and the run game's looking good. All these things are looking good. So I got 2 more questions, and my final one on
that's the question mark for me right there. The run game.
I guess my team ceiling for this team, and the run game plays a big part to that, to see if that's sustainable or not.
Yeah, I know. So that's where my question is. I felt like the Chargers should be having a three-back system the way that the Chiefs do. You have Jared McKinnon, you have Isaiah Pacheco, and you sometimes have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I thought that the Chargers would do something similar to that point. At this point, they haven't yet. They're too dependent on Austin Eckler. Joshua Kelly has been good for them this year, but I feel like they don't ride him enough, and that's kind of a problem. And the run game, I mean, in some of these games, if you're up 24-14, you're gonna have to grind it out with the run game. Are you good enough to grind it out? That's gonna be a question mark. Two, Justin Herbert, he needs to start. He needs to be able to take off and get those extra chunk yards the way Patrick Mahomes does. If there's nothing down the field, he's done it a couple of times, but and he's done it more ever since the rib injury is kind of healed. But I want to see if in the playoffs he does a little bit more of that, because in the playoffs you're going to see a lot more holes open up for you as a quarterback, and you're going to be able to take off running. Hell, if you can get 100 yards rushing and you guys win the game, I mean, that's honestly positive. But that's what I want to see. I want to see if they can run the ball efficiently in the playoffs, and maybe Justin Herbert take off running a couple of times just to get you a first down or get something going. But obviously, I just think that they need to they're gonna need to depend on the legs of Justin Herbert, and obviously the legs of Austin Eckler and Joshua Kelly.
And before we get you out of here, now we get to talk about the important stuff. So my final question, Fernando.
I thought she was drunk.
So, wait, what?
I thought she was drunk. Did you hear her on the microphone?
Sasha Banks.
She sounded drunk.
I mean, she could be super excited. I also want to say that it might sound different because it's like
the microphone's different.
And not only the microphone, but the audience. And like,
dude, the audience was so flat. I felt so bad for her. Like, the audience was so flat.
But some years they're like very
yeah.
Last year they were like crazy. So okay, for those that are listening, like what the hell's going on? Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, excuse me now.
I didn't like
has
that
debuted in New Japan Pro Wrestling. She's returned after months of speculation. My question to you is number one. So what were your thoughts on that? And also, is she going to AEW? Because that seems to be the play.
I heard that she's gonna appear in LA next week here. So Paige is supposed to be having a special tag team partner, and everybody's saying it's going to be Sasha Banks.
Saraya.
So we'll see. Yeah, Saraya. There you go. So we'll see if that's it. But man, I hope she didn't overplay her card. I hope she doesn't, because at AEW I don't want to get all into that, but I don't know. I don't think female wrestlers are growing as much as in WWE. I feel like sometimes they get buried, especially because it's only they're only doing 2 hours, 2 hours and 2 hours during the pay-per-view. It's only one women's match. Usually it's not like they're not really promoting the women as much, but I mean, we'll see what happens there. But I just, her hair looked like her hair was different. I thought she was drunk when she was talking on on the microphone. I was like, oh wow. Then did you see the cutout where you could see Bailey and Naomi in the crowd?
No, I know that they were there, and they were tweeting about it, and they were rumored.
They did a cutout, and like Bailey tried to kind of hide herself. But
yeah, because it's cool that they're there, but I don't think showing them on camera and like putting the titles.
Yeah, and I don't know.
Thing.
I don't know how WWE feels about Bailey being out there, but I mean, I guess Triple H is a little bit more chilled out than.
That should be cool. How about Vince, this with her hair? Because the
her hair was weird. She looked like a Hot Wheel. Like I thought it was different. I thought it was totally different.
But if you look at it, it's the red of it is the flames like burning off.
Yeah.
Like represent. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool.
You know what I thought was actually pretty cool about her though? What she tweeted out on New Year's. She put, "Thank you WWE, thank you Triple H, thank you Vince McMahon." Like, she thanked everybody for she unfollowed everybody except for like John Cena, and like she unfollowed Becky Lynch, Seth Rollins. Like, she unfollowed everybody except for like John Cena and a couple other people. But I was like, wow, I'm like, she really did do a whole detox. But I don't know. I just hope she doesn't. I hope that she doesn't go in there thinking that AEW is going to be something, and then she comes back like, oh crap, this is nowhere near what I thought it was going to be, and she tries to come crawling back, because the WWE is going to make another Sasha Banks quick, and I'm sure something like that, and I don't know if she's going to be able to come back. But I mean, I guess Cody Rhodes kind of opened the door for folks to come back, but I'm wondering if Sasha overplayed her hand, and then I'm wondering what's going to happen with Naomi. I mean, your husband is one of the top tag teams in WWE. I mean, are you gonna come back and be a part of the faction? Like, I'd love to see her as part of the bloodline. Like that would be completely awesome. But that's another question that I have, Naomi. Like, okay, you were with Sasha, and now Sasha's going to AEW. Like, what's up with you? Like, are you just gonna stay home and that's it? You're done with your wrestling career? Or are you gonna come back and possibly be a part of the bloodline? Like, I think that would be awesome to see her as part of the bloodline and maybe her win gold and stand there, because that's what I want. I want everybody on the bloodline with gold. I think that's what they're missing right now too. Like, give a couple of their guys, give them more of their guys some gold. But I mean, we'll see. Honestly, I'm happy for Sasha. If she's happy, I'm happy. You're a new program. I hope you enjoy it, but I hope you lose the little girl tendencies where you don't get what you want. And you cry and you get mad because look, it didn't work out for CM Punk, and I hope it works out for Sasha, but I don't know.
Fernando waited till we got to the last question and with the wrestling to bring the hot takes. My man's over here like Skip Bayless. Actually, no. Not Skip. And I said this was going to be a 10-minute interview. As always, Fernando, we appreciate you joining us. We'll bring you back for the Royal Rumble, all right?
Oh, there you go. That'll be exciting.
There it is. The Sporting Tribune Today continues after this.